it ended up that my shoulder was totally disintegrated up here. As I say, I don't know how it happened nor why, but it did. And I went and, of course, to the doctor, because I couldn't get my arm even 6 inches above my hip. And so we went to the doctor and checked it out, and they did the MRIs and all these good things, and they said, yeah, you need a whole renew construction, because it, and I said, well, what are my options? They said, you don't have any. He said, you either do it, or said it never ever will heal. He said it just absolutely will not. And so I began to question God, and I said, God, what's all this about? You just called us into a new ministry, and we just basically signed on. I've been assigned to some projects and so forth. And I said, I don't understand. And one Sunday morning, we were sitting in church in our kids' church there in Denver, and we were singing and praising God and that sort of thing. And I had something that come on me that's never been before and never happened since. But it was not a bolt of lightning. I don't know what it was. It was a feeling that come over me. And as I say, I cannot explain what in the world. But I knew that I was healed. And immediately I began to raise my arm. Raise it a little higher.
Praise God.
Before we left the service. It was healed instantly. That quickly.
Amen.
And we the family knew about it because the church had been praying and so forth, and they knew about it. But sometime later, actually a couple of years later, maybe longer than that, I don't remember. But anyway, we were up around again the front of the church during service, and we're all praying and worshiping God and that sort of thing. And I was just quiet. I wasn't really praying for anything. I was just thanking Jesus for the things that he had done, the good life and so forth. And like a bolt, I had thanked him and for the healing and so forth. And like a bolt, like somebody hit me upside the head and said, have you told anybody? And man, I did a double take. And since that time, I've tried to make it known. And that's what God reminded me today as I was sitting in that restaurant. Did you forget that healing? Did you forget what I asked you to do? And as I say, 13 years later now, the old geezer that I am, I've been up and down walls, crawled in rafters, just like the young guys, and without one single problem. And so my message to you guys here tonight, God is no respecter of person. What he did for me, he'll do for you, and you.
Amen.
And believe me, it will happen. And as I look back over it now, the things that I didn't understand what was going on at the time, but that was really a faith builder for me, because many times in the construction processes of all these things that I have dealt with since, I have reflected back on that and said, well, God, you did this. I know you can do this. And he's come through every time.
Amen.
Every time. He's never let me down one time. As I say, don't give up, because God is no respecter of person. What he healed and did thousands of years ago, he's still doing today, guys.
Amen.
Trust me, he is. And I've just gone, some of you know, I've just gone through a year now of heart surgery. And again, God, I had physicians do some operation and that sort of thing, but I have not really had one serious hurting moment of all of that. And it was pretty serious construction of my heart and the valves and so forth. But God has seen me through. And a few Sunday nights ago, I shared this with the congregation, that when all of that happened, yeah, I was scared. But again, I was leaning on God. You did this for me back 13 years ago. You can do it now. And just like that, peace come over me, and I went to sleep because he said, I've got it. Don't sweat it. I've got it. So I know, again, guys, he's still in the healing business. For those that you need a touch in your body, in your finance, doesn't matter what, he is there to heal that situation. Praise God.
Thank you.
Teresa, she's going to come up, she's going to share her testimony. Thank you.
It's really high up there.
Oh,
Okay, my name is Teresa, and I just have a few things. I'll just be quiet and go. Okay, my faith walk began when I was a child of 9. And although my mother and my father were saved, I grew up in the church. And they were actually the youth leaders of the male and the female youth parts, and ended up getting married in that same church and had their children in that church. But I never remember attending church. I never really felt like I had a place in my family, and I think a lot of people feel this way. I really could never understand my home life. There was an immense amount of bitterness, merciless teasing, and sickening reproach. There was absolutely no love in the house. A few years later, when I was in kindergarten through 3rd grade, my parents discovered through academic testing that I was completely illiterate and I could not even write my name. Then, as the Lord would have it, I attended a Christian private school where the academic success was truly difficult. Through long school days, excessive tutoring, and a copious amount of prayer by my teacher and others at the school, I slowly improved. The Lord has blessed me and I improved so much that by the time I was in the 5th grade, I was on the 8th grade graduation level. It's truly amazing how the Lord takes the weak, unlearned, and seemingly unproductive people in the world and does exciting things in their lives. So I was 9 years old when my 4th grade teacher, Miss Matson, led me to the Lord. Thank you, Miss Matson. I miss you. But of course, this was only the beginning. The years slowly passed, and because of the lack of guidance or the unconcern of my family, I was slowly led away and headed to the far country. The far country, for those of you who don't know, is a place that's away from God and the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Whatever you do, don't go into the far country after you've already known the Lord. Not good, okay? It's not a good thing. Because once you've been away from the far country and you've come to the Lord, and the love that the Lord has for you, it's the experience that you have that changes you from the Lord. So going back brings only pain and confusion because no one who is saved belongs there. And it has become a foreign land in which no one longer speaks the language. And people know you don't belong there anymore. And they look at you. Why are you here? See, they know, you may not know. I may not know, or I didn't know, but they did. On the journey back home to the promised land, there could be attacks from the enemy, traps and trials, an experience I wished I had never gone through. Though I have found on my faith walk that these things happen anyway. There were so many times in which I could have lost my life, I cannot count them all. Back in the tight embrace of the Lord, He was continually showing me how great He truly is. I was out bike riding one day about 10 years ago. I stopped for a moment because my little dog's leash got tangled around her legs. So I stopped, I bent down, I untangled the leash, and straightened up again, but for some reason I became very dizzy. Now I was on a high curb, and I knew that if I fell, it was going to be very bad. Either I was going to break my whole shoulder, and get a concussion. Or I could have fallen and broken my neck and laid right there until somebody found me. But there again, the Lord was there, and it was as if an invisible hand reached out and set me on my feet again. Isn't the Lord good?
Amen.
There have been many things over the years that have shaped me into who I am today. When the Lord could no longer use me in the situation I was in, He made it so I had to get out of the boat because there was no other option. For the last few years, He's been asking me, Teresa, do you trust me? Do you trust me yet? Do you trust me now? As He has continued to change me, teaching me to slowly let go of my fears, and at this moment, this has not been completed. But all of this has led me to stand before you today. A life of service to the Lord begins in many different ways and has many different facets. Like a diamond beginning to shine because the hand of the Master is cutting away the old and polishing a new light and brilliance from a stone taken from the dark place. I don't know how today will end, and I don't know what tomorrow will bring. The only thing I know for sure is that the Lord Jesus Christ is my Savior. He is the only one who could save me from death, hell, and the grave, and His abundant grace and love is sufficient for me.
Amen. What an awesome statement is that he's still there. He's still working on me. He's not going to give up on me. He died for me, and He has a plan for me. And as He continues to lead me, as He continues to strengthen me, He continues to show us on the way we're supposed to go. This is how He does that. By letting us see through the lives of others that I can overcome my fears. As we finished up the weekly series last night, John Ortberg, if you want to walk on more, you got to get out of the boat. The greatest thing that kept any of those people that he was teaching there from doing what God was calling them to do was fear. Remember when Jesus asked Peter, Peter, do you love me? And Peter just nonchalantly asked, yes, Lord, I love you. And Jesus said, Peter, do you love me? Oh, yeah, Lord, I love you. And the third time it finally hit home with Peter when the Lord said, Peter, do you love me? That He finally got Peter's attention. And sometimes it takes a little while to get my attention. But that's okay because He's not going to stop asking me until I say, yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. He said, now feed my sheep. So Everett wanted to share some of his testimony. So Everett, if you come on up.
Well, the good Lord's been with me a long time, but I've shorted it in a lot of places and fell short. But here about 5 years, it'll be 5 years, the 20th of January, that I come to Arizona. And when I left Colorado, I was born a Lutheran, and they had a cowboy church. And and I went to cowboy church. And I learned quite a little bit there about the Bible and a few things that I never picked up when I was at the Lutheran church because nobody really drove it into me. And it took a cowboy to kind of take me by the reins and wake me up. So I got there. So when I was ready to come to Arizona, and I went to the Lutheran church a lot of Sunday mornings and cowboy church Sunday night because I kind of needed quite a bit of the Lord and everything. So I was ready to come down here, and a lady that belonged to the church, I had met her in the grocery store, and she said, I hear you're leaving. And I said, yeah. And she said, you know, you need to straighten your life up. And I said, yeah, you're probably right. She said, I hear you're going to Cowboy Church. And I said, that's right. She said, you know you're a Lutheran? I said, yeah, I know that. She said, well, it's wrong. If you're gonna be a Lutheran, you gotta be a Lutheran. You can't serve two churches. And so I went with her a little bit, and I thought what to say and whatever, and told her that I thought the Lutherans had some rules that I didn't like. Because they wouldn't, if you wasn't a member of the Lutheran church, you didn't have a funeral there. Even if your wife was and your kids had been baptized there, but you never joined a Lutheran church, they didn't have his funeral there. And it kind of hurt the Lutheran girl a little bit. But anyhow, I told her a few rules, and then I told her, I said, you know, that what the Bible says, I said, Jesus never had no rules. I said, anybody that needed help, I said, Jesus helped them. And I said, and one other thing, I said, how many churches are they going to have in heaven? And she didn't really have no answers. But anyhow, that's the way I come to Arizona. And I prayed a lot coming down here, and got down here and had a job there, Pinnell Feed Yard. And I didn't know nobody. So for the first 4 months, it didn't need much. I didn't take no days off, because I could go to Walmart and get my food, because it's just about 12, 13 miles away, and just a couple miles away from the lot. And so I could run up there, get my food, and I didn't need to do. And I prayed for a Lutheran church or a Cowboy church. I didn't know nothing, but that took a year. Christmas time, Christmas Eve, there was a church up there on Papago that I'd been up there and went to a saddle shop and stuff. And I seen there that they're going to have Christmas Eve services there at that church, such and such a time. So I drove up there and went to the Christmas Eve service, you know, and met the preacher and a few things, and but never learned a whole lot. And then I come back and still praying for a Lutheran church. I needed a church. I just felt that, you know, I needed a church to build my character and strength and everything. And one day I just driving up Pinnell, and there was a sign, Pinnell Cowboy Church, you know, Tuesday nights. Well, this is on a Tuesday. Took Tuesday as my day off. And that, if you look back what goes on Tuesday, the prayer meeting here and everything, God guided me to that day off, because all the other cowboys took different, and that was left, so I took Tuesday. But anyhow, then I found Cowboy Church Tuesday night, but I had chores to do that night. I couldn't make it. But the next Tuesday night, I went there, and whenever I went there, Dennis and Dessa was there. Dessa was a greeter, Dennis was a guitar player. And so I got to going on Tuesday nights and everything, and really, really enjoyed it. Everybody was, you know, a lot of handshaking and welcome there. I really got a lot out of the sermon. It really built my heart up, and I thank the Lord for what He done. And then all at once, Dessa and Dennis disappeared. You know, and I wasn't very smart. I didn't know where they went or anything. They was gone. And they come back one other time to church and sat it there and listened to the message. And but I was going to talk to them, you know, and see what they're talking to Dessa anyhow, and see, you know, where she went. But there's so many people around there, I didn't get it. I just went ahead and left, you know. Well, I prayed to God, you know, that guide me, you know. That I missed them, you know. And so anyhow, they had a little doings up there, and they was up there, they had a potluck, and they come. And so Dennis was off talking to me, and Dessa was standing there, so I asked her, I says, what's he doing playing where's he at, still playing the guitar? Yeah, she said he's playing the guitar and preaching. And she gave me a card here on the Golden Harvest Church, and said, come down. Kind of told me, he said, well, it ain't that far from, you know, Pinnell Church. Just come down, and we got